I didn't come here by chance. The path to the house was narrow, overgrown, as if the land itself had tried to forget the way. The wind whispered among the dry branches, and every rustle seemed an answer to a question I hadn't yet asked. I stopped at the gate and listened. The silence was thick as cloth, and in it, I could hear only my own pulse. The door opened more easily than I'd expected. Inside, it smelled of old paper and something sweet, like childhood candies left for too long. The flashlight beam pulled furniture, shrouded in white sheets from the darkness, and on each sheet lay a shadow resembling a hand, as if someone were trying to break free. I took a step, and the floor beneath me answered with a creak that sounded like a name spoken into the void. I walked down the corridor, and the walls whispered stories that didn't want to be told. In one of the paintings, a family smiling, but their eyes were too dark, as if night were hidden within. I stopped and saw a small toy on the floor, a wooden horse with a broken tail. It lay as if just dropped, though the dust on it spoke of decades of neglect. In the living room stood an old fireplace. An ember still glowed within, though I saw no flame. The warmth didn't come from the fire but from something else, a presence that didn't need light to exist. I moved closer and heard, somewhere above, in the deepest part of the house, the quiet tapping of a metronome. Tick-tock, tick-tock. It wasn't counting seconds but memories, and each tick drew from me a word I didn't want to say. I climbed the stairs. Each step echoed, as if the house were repeating my footsteps behind me, but with a delay. The corridor on the upper floor was longer than it should have been, and the doors on either side seemed alive. They breathed, slightly opening and closing, as if someone inside were trying to breathe in time with me. I stopped at one door and felt a chill run down my spine. From beneath the crack came the sound of a child's laughter. Not loud, not joyful, the kind that appears in empty houses when no one is watching. I pushed the door open. The room was empty except for a small crib by the window. On the windowsill lay a photograph, black and white, its edges faded. It showed a boy looking directly into the camera, and his eyes were familiar. I realized I'd seen them before in the painting in the corridor, in the mirror's reflection, in the shadow on the sheet. They looked at me as if waiting for me to return something I'd kept hidden. I picked up the photograph, and the house shuddered. The walls whispered louder, and the laughter turned into a whisper that began to form words. They spoke my name, but not as people call each other, more like a key fitting a long-forgotten lock. I felt something pulling me back toward the door, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the face in the picture. His lips were closed, but they held a promise that wasn't meant to be kept. I placed the photograph on the bed, and the sheet trembled as if someone beneath it were breathing. I stepped back, but the corridor behind me had vanished. The door I'd entered through had become part of the wall, and the house was no longer a house. It had become a vessel holding voices. I tried to scream, but the sound didn't escape. It stayed inside, like a coin in a crack, and the house began counting it, tick by tock. Suddenly, a faint light flickered in the room, and a silhouette appeared in the corner. It wasn't quite human, too tall, too thin, with arms that seemed made of shadows, but in its chest beat something familiar, a rhythm matching my heart. The silhouette leaned forward, and I saw in it a reflection, my own face, but old, weary, with eyes that knew too much. It smiled, and in that smile was the same promise from the photograph. "You've come," the house whispered, and the voice was both mine and not mine. "You took what was mine, and now you must return it." I realized I couldn't remember what I'd taken. In my memory was only emptiness, filled with the ticking of the metronome and the smell of candy. I tried to remember, but the house began showing me scenes like a film reel, and in each scene, I was a child holding a small object, a button, a key, a piece of mirror. I saw myself hiding it in my pocket, closing the door, and walking away without looking back. The silhouette reached out its hand, and I felt cold air brush my skin. In its palm lay that very object, small, insignificant, yet with it, the house came to life. I realized the house didn't want revenge, it wanted completion. It wanted me to return what I'd stolen from it as a child. Back when I didn't yet know that things could hold such price. I reached out, My fingers trembled but touched the object. At that same moment, the house exhaled, and all the shadows in the room rushed toward the light, as if someone had opened a window after a long night. The laughter turned into weeping, the weeping into a whisper of gratitude, and I felt something change within me as if I'd given a part of myself back. The door reappeared, and the corridor returned to its normal length. I stepped outside, and the night was just as before, but in my pocket lay a button, a key, or a piece of mirror I couldn't say for sure. I walked away from the house, and the metronome in my head still ticked, but now it counted steps, not debts. I looked back once, and in the window of the upper room, a figure flashed, a small shadow waving at me. I don't know who the boy in the photograph was. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was someone else. But now, when I hear a child's laughter in the silence of the night, it no longer frightens me as it once did. It reminds me that some things return if you don't give them back in time. And if you ever find yourself by an old house where the walls whisper, and the metronome counts not seconds but memories don't linger, give back what's in your pocket before the house asks for it itself.